Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you my open picks and bets show. First off, as always, thank you so much for checking me out, stopping in. Had amazing John Deere Classic. Of course, picked Lucas Glover outright. And if you guys been following me, I hope you guys did the same. Got to hit him on the bet. I believe it was 40 to 1. And yeah, it was a great turn. I'm not here to talk about the John Deere, but because I didn't really cover a whole lot of it on the preview show, I thought I'd throw that in there. And last but not least, what I'm going to cover today, we're going to go almost player by player from the 7,000 range and up. We're going to talk about who I like, why I like. I'm going to get into the picks. We're going to look at where I believe there's certain tournaments that we can leverage to also kind of solidify who we want. And last but not least, I always do my bets. All right, let's get into this. So first thing, if you missed my preview show, I always go through kind of a stroke gain analysis ranking for you. How do I think, what is important, and what kind of player are we looking for that could win this Open? The number one thing that always shows up, of course, very hard to predict, but is very key, is putting. So we're going to look at that. I'm also going to look at the 5 to 10 foot putting range. I think that is very key, guys that can save their pars. And of course, if they get in that range to make their birdies. These huge pot bunkers, tons of them. Sand saves is going to be up there. Of course, you have to have creativity around the green and be very good with that. That's always shown up. Your approach has got to be on. Where to land it, where to leave it short to allow it to roll up, using the contours. Ball striking, of course, tee to green is always key. And then I actually added good drives plus fairways gained. The reason why I've done this, so you're kind of doubling down because good drives also gives you the first cut of rough off the fairway. And why I'm doing this is because I've been listening to a lot of the pressers. Guys are talking about how heavy the rough is here, probably the heaviest, thickest they've seen. Now, I'm not talking so much about the fescue. I'm talking about the grass that you get in before you get into the tall fescue. Of course, scrambling. I think good scramblers are the creative, like the Patrick Reeds and the Jordan Spieth, that can navigate around a course if they do get off the beaten path. And then because we have a par 71 and only 2 par 5s, I think managing these par 3s and par 4s is going to be at a premium. So that's going to be in there too. Okay, so the one thing that I wanted to talk about, of course, and this isn't going to show up in Fantasy National, that's why I've pulled it up, is some guys that you just might want to have on your radar that have done well. And of course, if you follow golf quite a bit, you're going to know a bit of this, but there's people I'm sure are tuning in because it is a major that, don't follow golf all the time. So some guys that you might want to look at when you're going into your DFS and making your picks are some of the guys that have done well very recently. Of course, you had the Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club just finished this past weekend while the John Deere was going on here. You've got the Irish Open that happened over, of course, in Ireland. That also happened. There's some guys that I think you might want to keep your eye on. Then the far right here, this would be in Germany for the BMW International. And I just wanted to pull all these up, get them in front of your face. And there's some guys that have popped up multiple times in both of these. So, of course, good recent form. And no shocker, the first one would be that Minwoo Lee, who won just recently here at the Scottish. He also had a T17 at the Irish. So that's the last, 2 tournaments he's done very well at. You've also got Lucas Herbert now, who won the Irish Open and also had a tie for 4th at the Scottish. You got Richard Bland, of course, who came onto our radar at the U.S. Open, was your second round leader, and then, of course, fell apart on the weekend. But his last 2 tournaments, as you can see at the Scottish and the Irish, he's got a T15 and a T4, someone that I'm looking to roster. And then last but not least, you've got Ramsey, who is a typical European player, but I just wanted to bring him up. Had a T15, of course, at the Scottish, which is a True Links course. And then the Irish Open is a typical, what we see, in the U.S. That course, I would not put that as a links style course. And then last but not least, you've got Jason Vermeer, a U.S., but plays a ton on the European Tour. He's also had some nice finishes. He had a T8 at the Scottish and a 3rd place at the Irish. And then last but not least, of course, over here, if you did not know, Victor Hovland a couple weeks ago won in Germany at the BMW International. So that's really just, again, things that might be a little off your radar, even if you play quite a bit of DFS. I wanted to bring that to your guys' attention. All right, and as I always do, I try to look at comparable courses, tournaments, as I'm flushing out the guys that I'm going to pick. And what you're seeing here in the middle is it just more of a new recent form model for you guys to take a look at. Of course, we've got a lot of withdrawals. That's going to be very prevalent when you are on DraftKings. You're going to see they're going to have it very well noted that they are out. But you had some recent ones with Morikawa. I'm sorry, not Morikawa. Strike that. With Matsuyama, Zach Johnson. Some guys that have recently withdrawn. But again, no issues. Just, of course, don't pick the guys that have out below their name, and you'll be fine. But when I ran new with the good drives added, I kind of pulled out the proximities. I just didn't feel like that 10% on those two proximities was really going to help us out a lot. So like I said, I wanted to add good drives. And the first guy that popped up over the last 12 rounds with no filters in the model is Harris English. You got Russ Henley, Louis, Cantlay, Morikawa. I'm not going to go through all these guys, but you can see under the things that I've weighted very heavily, from putting around the green, approach, sand saves, these are the guys over the last 3 tournaments or 12 rounds have done very well at that. Now, with that said, really what I wanted to focus on is the courses and that I'm going to focus in tournaments to also give that just next verification that, hey, we're on the right guys. Because sometimes, of course, the model and analysis doesn't tell the whole story. And so what I think we can look at, of course, is the recent PGA Championship at Kiawah, the Ocean course. It's a link style course, very similar. Of course, it's off the ocean, so they're also going to have the winds. You know, I threw Palmetto in here. There's not a ton of the guys. Of course, Garrick Higgle won it. Terrell Hatton was there. There's some guys, but we can look at Palmetto. It is a link style course. But I would say the next 6 are probably very prevalent. Of course, we're going to look at all the Open history. So that's one reference point. You've got the 2015 PGA Championship at Wilson Straits out of Wisconsin. Of course, that's also got the Lake Michigan winds. Something I think that's very prevalent. You've got the U.S. Open, which, you know, Pebble Beach is a link styles course. You might not think that, but it is. We had the 2009 Pebble Beach, where they had the U.S. Open. You've got the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills, 2018. You got the 2015 U.S. Open at Chambers Bay, and last but not least, the 2017 U.S. Open at Erin Hills. And you can kind of see that, you know, the U.S. Open is picked courses like the Open that are link style and wind can blow to make it a test. So that's what I'm going to reference. I like those, you know, just to go try to pick tournaments like, you know, Muirfield where they play Memorial. I just don't think it's going to be as good as what we've seen these guys do in majors at link style courses where wind can be a factor. Okay, with that said, we're going to go jump over into Fantasy National and look at some models, talk about the players, and do some deep dive, and you can see who I like, and maybe you'll find some guys that you like that I'm not looking at. Okay, so with that said, we are jumping over to Fantasy National, and what you're going to notice is on the left here is all these kind of different filters. I'm not using any of them because I want recent form. So you can see last 12 rounds. You're also going to see over here, one of the main key indicators that I'm going to be looking at is putts gained from 5 to 10 feet. I mentioned that earlier. And then also I got kind of a mini model here. Number one thing I'm looking at is putting, then around the green, approach, those good drives, and then ball striking. And then last but not least, over to the right, you can see recent results on how they've done, and then of course tournament history at the Open. And that's kind of the information that I'm using to kind of just keep whittling down who I like. And no shocker right out the bat, I usually always say this, but I don't typically pick the number one guy. You know, I always said it doesn't pan out. I mean, look at Daniel Berger at the John Deere Classic. You know, DJ's been up there and has not performed. But in this instance, just like when we were talking about the U.S. Open, I had to pick Rahm. There was everything told me at Torrey Pines he was going to do well. Of course, he did. And so there's no way possible I'm going to tell you guys, hey, don't roster the number one highest cost guy, because everything, again, shows, and even his, of course, being from Europe, and he's had an amazing links record, there's no reason why I can't tell you or, you know, say, hey, you know, you can save a little money, go to this guy. This is my favorite guy off, the, you know, from the 10,000, 11,000 range. You know, he hasn't had at the Open the greatest history, but we'll look at some of the other comp courses and talk about why I like him. Of course, you can see from the mini model, he's ranked number 11, so everything looks good here. You can see that under the putts from 5 to 10 feet, you can say, well, hey, he's red here. But what happened was, of course, is he got that new putter, fell in love with it, and he started winning. And, of course, this shows up as a withdrawal. But if you've watched a bit of golf, you're going to know that actually he was winning that tournament, I believe, by 6 strokes. And then, of course, had to withdraw due to a positive test. So, of course, then it went to Cantlay and Morikawa. And, but yeah, so he should have a first place, a T8, a T34. So, again, for the people that, are just wanting to play a little on the major, I just want to make that very clear. Okay, so let's go jump on Rahm and get some further deep dive information. You can see over the life of his career, he does gain on bent, which is good. You can see stroke gains have just been on the way up for over his life of his career. It's also illustrated here where you can see a little more breakdown, stroke gain by approach off the tee to green. And the one thing you're not going to see here is the memorial, which, should be right here, that he won or should have won. But, of course, coming off the win at the U.S. Open. And then if we start to go look and see on some of those events, so if we look at the PGA, he ended up in 8th at Kiowa. Actually made a nice little comeback over the weekend. Kind of struggled a little bit out of the gate. He did not play at Palmetto, but if we just look at it, his Open history, he had an 11th most recently, he had a missed cut before that, a 49th, a 59th. If we go look at Whistling Straits, we got to go look at the PGA at 2015. He did not play at that point. And then if we go look at the U.S. Open, we want to look at this 2018. Funny enough, I am not making the greatest case for Rahm, but we all know what he's been doing in recent form. He missed the cut at Shinnecock Hills. That's actually POA greens. And while we're here, he did not play at Chambers Bay at 2015. And then Erin Hills at 2017 missed the cut. So funny enough, again, that's all a while ago. But if we went off just purely some of the comparable courses that I'm looking at, it wasn't the great. But everything else points to Rahm. I don't think I have to sell you on him. But that guy is going to be one of my leadoff guys going in. All right. Rory, of course, the previous 2019, if you remember, a lot of pressure. You had Shane Lowry from Ireland, of course, who won it. A lot of people looking at Rory to win it, and he came out, if I remember correctly, I think he hit his first tee ball out of bounds, and it just kind of went south from there. But that's not the main reason. I mean, we look at Rory's, past in this, everything points that he should do well at the Open. He loves link style, but here's that cut, of course, at Portrush. But you can see where I'm worried about his recent form with that putter, except for what he did at Wells Fargo and the Quail Hollow. There's been some issues here. And you can see also at Kiowa, he missed a lot of short putts, especially on Sunday watching him. So for me, I'm going to pass on Rory, and I'm going to go the next guy, of course, who's Brooks Koepka. And even though you can see my model rank has him at 16th, but I would like to put Koepka in. $200 saving. Also has a great history at the Open. Of course, we know what he does at the majors. Also been in real good recent form. He had the T2 at Kiowa. Should have won that. Of course, Phil pulled it out. And also, I like to see that the putter over the last couple tournaments has been on the way up from the 5 to 10 foot range. Let's just go look at some other areas here. Again, he did not play at the Palmetto. We already know, I mentioned that he had the second place at Kiowa. Let's go and look at some PGAs, which, of course, he's done very well at. So this one right here would be Whistling Straits. He had a 5th place finish. If we go look at some U.S. Opens, of course, he had the 2 wins in 2019, 2018 back-to-back. I don't think you need me to sell you on his major kind of history. But let's just go look at the U.S. Open information. All right. So this was the one at Pebble Beach. Of course, Gary Woodland won. He came in second. We look at 2018. This is Shinnecock Hills. Again, a links course on POA. He won that one. If we track back to 2015, that's Chambers Bay, POA. But again, a links style course in the U.S. off water. He ended up 18th. And then if we look at 2017 at Erin Hills, That is bent grass, which is the similarity, and also is you also are getting a link style course, and he won that at Erin Hills. You can see that course. It just the weather just didn't hit, and they lit that course up. But anyways, long story short, that is all the reasons why I will be rostering Brooks Koepka, and I think you can see here right now. Of course, I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon, but his ownership is showing that. You can see a dip there, and you can see, Rahm at 13, but right now Brooks is pretty heavily favored on a projected ownership. Now, of course, DJ, he's had some successes at, the courses that I've just been talking about. The recent form, I mean, you can see the putter's been pretty solid from 5 to 10 feet over his last 12 rounds. His history recently at the Open has been a little tough, but, he had a T9 back in 2016. And, everything here from a mile perspective. But, everybody like me, his projected ownership, his game's just not been there. And I don't know if he can turn out a switch. Also, his desire and want to win. Now, I'm not saying he's going to the Open and not going to give everything he has, but it's just really hard to roster DJ right now at 10,400. So he's a pass for me. Schauffele, he just always shows up. You can see everything is pointing that Schauffele should do very well here. I couldn't really give you no argument against him, except, I just like another person better, and that would be Jordan Spieth. But before we get to him, of course, DeChambeau, of course, he's got a new guy on the bag. And just his ability around the greens, it's just terrifying me here. And I know that he can set a new game plan and not hit the driver. But the drives also is making me. You can see though, showing some good drives, ranking 50 against his field. But I'm just terrified of know, and you can see again projected ownership still in. So what you are seeing is there's some areas, if you look at DeChambeau and you look at like a DJ and a Rory, there's some areas that you could differentiate at the top here. Of course, Jordan Spieth, everything is telling me, and what we know about Jordan Spieth, that, you got to play him here. He is also right now, it looks like to be the highest owned, but it's the guy that I am going to plug in. You can see that 5 to 10 foot range. If you wanted to make a reason why not to play Jordan, is this right here. What he's been doing with the putter has been falling apart. But you can see his tournament history at the Open, even when he's had some struggles. If you think about, 2018, still had a T9. Of course, the recent form has been great. The putter's been a little lackluster as of, recent. And we can just go look at some comparables. You can see bent grass is where he does do his damage. And everything here over his last has been green except this little putting issue at the PGA Championship. Lost 2 strokes to the field. That was actually on Bermuda. I'm pretty sure he did not play the Palmetto. Nope. So we already kind of looked at the Open history. Let's go look at Whistling Straits, what he did. That's the PGA back in 2015, where he came in second place. Again, very similar. No shocker that, you had the win, you had the link style course, you had the bent grass, and he came in second back in 2015 on that. If we go look at the PGA at Pebble Beach in 2019, he had a third place there. And again, wasn't in his best of form, but look at the strokes he gained. Now, that is actually a POA green. If we go look at Shinnecock, which I should have just stayed right there at the U.S. Open. Shinnecock was 2018. He missed a cut there. If we look at Chambers Bay 2015, where he won the U.S. Open, those are POA greens, but again, I think very relevant. And then 2017, he had a 35th at Erin Hills. So again, everything tells me in the creativity and what he needs to do around the greens. I like him. Justin Thomas, he was talking and, it's feel like his game. And we also saw what he did at the Scottish Open, which is not going to show up over here. But again, just wanted to bring up, had a really good showing. He's feeling better with the putter. I actually bet him while we're on a betting tip. I bet him when he gets to 20 to 1 odds, I got to bet him. So That is one of my bets I'm going to bring up at the end, but just to let you know. But from a DFS perspective, I'm going to pass. I'm going to go down to Louis Oosthuizen. Of course, you can see his form here, who's, I don't want to know if it's his first win, but one of his biggest wins, of course, was the Open. He had a T2 back in 2015, so that's not showing up, but we'll plug that in. But you can just see, been leading the PGA with the putter in 5 to 10 feet. It's been amazing. You can see almost all top echelon with everything that I'm looking for from a model perspective. He ends up fourth. Okay, so we jump over to Louis Oosthuizen. You can see POA is actually his best surface, but does gain on bent over the life of his career. His stroke gain has been on the way up. And I am looking first, of course, at the PGA. He had the second place finish, runner-up behind Mr. Phil Mickelson. He did not play the Palmetto. And if we go look at his Open history, of course, it doesn't show up here, but he won the British Open back in 2010, as I mentioned. He had a second back in 2015. He's had a 20th, so just a great history. Always in major. He's always there. And then if we go look at some of the other, we go look at the PGA. 2015, he had a 30th at Whistling Straits. And if we look at now the U.S. Opens, so we kind of track through these. 2019 at Pebble Beach, he had a 7th. If we look at 2018, he had a 16th at Shinnecock. 2015 at Chambers Bay, he had a second place runner-up finish. And then 2017 at Erin Hills, he had a 23rd. So the guy has just had an amazing pedigree in majors, period. And hence now the price tag that we have to pay for Louis. And you can see his projected ownership. Everything else looks great. So he is definitely someone I'm going to be looking at. Collin Morikawa, even though you can see he doesn't have a tournament history at the Open, a lot like Victor Hovland. They didn't play in 2019. I take that back. They did not play the Open in 2020. So those guys did not get a chance to do that. But you can see everything that I want from a modeling perspective. He is the leader in approach and good drives, ball striking, around the green. It's, of course, the putter. But you can see those 5 to 10 footers. He's been solid. That's what I'm really looking at. And hopefully the claw just keeps producing. Great recent form. A T4 at the U.S. Open, a second at Memorial, Charles Schwab at a T14, and a T8 at the PGA, RBC Heritage at a T7, so everything's good there. And I'm not going to have a lot that I can really go through with Morikawa because he just hasn't been around long enough. But you can see out of all of his surfaces so far, Ben is his best. You can see stroke gain is on the way. And, of course, where he will struggle is with the putter. So hopefully if that clicks, he'll be very live at any tournament he plays. Just to confirm, I'm pretty sure, yes, he did not play the Palmetto. I'm just going to have to look through here. He's got no history at the Open. He did not play Whistling Straits 2015. We can go look at the U.S. Open, and this would be the recent one. We already said he had a 4th. Trying to see, he did not. So the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, he had a 35th. That's the one I was looking at. This, of course, is Torrey Pines. Just kind of looking through here. Anything else in 2017 he would. So there's not a lot on those tournaments that I was looking at, but we all know what Collin Morikawa can do. The guy's elite. You can see from my modeling perspective, he's number one. Everything I like. I thought about Victor. I think kind of similar to some degree. And from a modeling perspective, of course, Victor, had to withdraw at the U.S. Open with the eye. He just won the BMW International I mentioned. There's no reason. I was kind of in between both these guys. Actually, if I had typically my pick, I'm kind of a Victor guy just because of how many birdies he can rack off from a DFS perspective. So you couldn't do any harm with either of these guys. But the next guy I'm falling into is Terrell Hatton. The guy, of course, is, from England. The guy's played a ton of links, of course, knows how to really navigate them. Funny enough, he has a decent history at the Open, but you can also see a couple missed cuts, a T51, but with that a T6, a T5. You can see right here that the putting from the 5 to 10 foot range is kind of falling back a little bit, but we also know he can get super hot with it. And you can see he was doing everything well in my modeling perspective, except the putter. And again, that's looking at the last 12 rounds. So we're just stating at the last 12 rounds. He hasn't been that great. You know, typically gains on pole and Bermuda, does not gain on bent. You know, his stroke gain has been on the way up. And if we go look at the PGA, recently had a 38th at Kiowa. He did actually play Palmetto. It had a second place there. And it is a true link style US course. We kind of already looked at the Open, but we might get a few more. Let's go see. If we pull up the Open, yeah, some miscuts below, but a 5th and a 6th would be the best finish. Let's look at the PGA. Oops. PGA 2015. That would be a Whistling Straits. He had a 25th. And then the rest are the US Opens that we want to kind of look at here. All right, so at Torrey, he missed the cut. At Pebble Beach on 2019, he had 21st. He did not play 2015 at Chambers Bay, but at Erin Hills, he missed a cut. But again, I know his experience, and it's more, I think, with his temperament and how kind of the rounds go for him. You know, it could be up or down, but I really like Terrell Hatton. Next guy I'm following to is Patrick Cantlay. You can see he ranks 3rd in my model. Clicking everything I want from a modeling perspective. He's only had a couple tournaments at the Open, a T41 and a T12. And you can see the recent form, of course. We'll call it the default win, the battle between him and Morikawa for second that turned into a win. But good showing at the U.S. Open at Torrey, T13 at Travelers. Right, he kind of lost his way with the putter there, especially at the Masters. Fell apart, missed a cut there, and then Wells Fargo. But you can see the putter's been coming back, which hence is why I'm looking at him. And then we go look at some of his comparables. Of course, bent is his favorite putting surface over the life of his career. If we go look at the PGA Championship at Torrey at a 23rd. I'm sorry, redo that. At the PGA Championship at Kiowa, he had a 23rd. Trying to keep these things straight in my head. He did not play Palmetto. I already talked about his Open history, so I don't need to go over that. Let's go look at the PGA at Whistling Straits, which he did not play in. Okay, let's go look at the U.S. Open. All right, so we plugged through the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. He had a 21st. 2018 at Shinnecock, he had a 45th. That's an amateur event there. He had a 41st back in 2012. He didn't play at Chambers Bay. But everything else that I like, I think he can navigate away his round. I like Cantlay in his position. You know, Reed is a guy that you just think he would do well at these events. You know, of course, he had a 10th in 2019 at Port Rush. But everything else, you know, kind of on, off. Really what's made me nervous is his putter is not where it's been. And so I'm kind of off on Reed on this one. Of course, Hideki, I mentioned, is withdrawn. Paul Casey, it's the putter, is why, you know, everything else I like. You can see his tournament history has been kind of hit or miss. From a ball striking perspective, you know, he's great. Around the green, you can see he can get up and down, but it's just a putter. Same thing with Will Zalatoris, of course. You know, he had a decent showing at the Scottish. But it's this putter that I can't do it. You can also see that kind of shows up. Finau's just been, you know, he's had a great tournament history, and his game tells you to play, but this is the issue here, his drives. He's been really missing with the driver. The putter's always been an issue. It's kind of a double fire. You got Webb, who I think if he was in good form, I would be interested in. You can see, you know, has made the cut at the Opens. It just, this kind of golf kind of suits Webb's game. But he's not been Webb. He's been, you know, not really good with the driver. There's reports of some back issues. You know, this putter, I'm not really sure how this is showing what it is, but what I know what he's been doing with the putter. Let's go click on him. I just want to dive in a little more deeper because I'm really kind of shocked that that's showing up. So Bentz's worst putting surface. You can see kind of the two misfires here. You know, the Rocket Mortgage, a very simple track, couldn't even make the cut. Um, really since the Sony, which was way back. He hasn't played a lot of golf. Missed a cut at the Players. Had a decent showing at the Masters. We can't break down the analysis there, but yeah, these two last events, I'm not going to be rostering Webb, and I'm a huge Webb fan, but he has been out of sorts this year, and rumor is it's been a back issue. So the next guy I fall to, who has no open history, but Texas guy, had a good showing at the Scottish, and just I like his game for this. You can see 5 to 10 foot range is actually the 1 foot to 5 foot, the 3 foot range is where you'll see Scotty Scheffler struggle. And we're not going to get a lot because, again, like a Morikawa, you can see his, over his career, the putter, can be some issue, but bent, I guess would be with his second to best, worst, however you want to put that. The guy can definitely handle himself in the wind, gains 2 strokes on the field when it is super windy. The putter can be off and on, but you can see if you look over the last, what would that be, 7 events, he's gained 4 out of the 7, so that's good. If we plug in a few things that we can go look at, so the U.S. Open recently had a 7th, Memorial at Murfield, tough course. The PGA at Torrey had an 8th. I don't know. He did not play at Palmetto. I just wanted to confirm that. This was at Kiowa, so the 2021 he had an 8th. Just trying to see if there's anything else on here. So we go look at the U.S. Open. He missed a cut at Pebble Beach. And this would be Aaron Hills. He had a 27th. And I'm guessing that would be amateur status at that time, so that's pretty impressive. And that's about as far as I'm going to be able to go on those kind of tournaments for Scotty, but I like him. Adam Scott, he could be a sneaky play. Pretty good tournament history. It's just, the putter's actually been pretty good for Adam Scott. It's been the driver has been quite a disaster, and he's going to get himself in a lot of trouble if that's not going. Justin Rose, another, kind of play that good showings at here. The putter has been, super hot. Of course, his last 2 best showings was the Masters and the PGA. So you can make an argument for that, but just everything approach around the green, just, kind of terrifies me. So the guy that I would go to that I think has a better pedigree in this kind of environment would be Fairway Jesus, Tommy Fleetwood. And so we go look at his, he had a 2nd at Portrush, a T12, a T27 with some rough weather. Of course, at Portrush that he managed, and of course Shane ended up winning that. Recent form's been odd, but you also, if you watch the Scottish Open, he had a good showing, and the Irish, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure he played there, and I think he had a pretty good showing there too. We go look at Tommy Fleetwood, and we just go take a look. His putter splits, he does gain very slightly over his career on bent. For some reason, it's still loading the stroke gain on the wind. And let's just go run through some of the comps. So he missed a cut at Kiowa, which, that doesn't hold. He did play at the Palmetto, ended up getting a 35th. It was kind of humdrum, to be honest. We go look at the Open, and we can get a little deeper. He's got 3 missed cuts, but then 3 good recent showings. All right, we go to the PGA, and what I want to look at is the 2015. He missed a cut at Whistling Straits, but other than that, done okay at the PGA. Now let's go look at the U.S. Open history. And so at Torrey, he had a 50th recently. If we skip down to the 2019 at Pebble Beach, he had a 65th. But these are what's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a little while back, I understand. But at Shinnecock, he had a runner-up, a 2nd. At Aaron Hills, he had a 4th. And then at Chambers Bay, he had a 27th. So that was honestly what kind of pushed me over. And also some good recent form with Tommy. But, I just picture him in this kind of environment that he should do well. I love the roster, Shane Lowry. You can make an argument. I'm not going to sit there and not. But you can see his tournament history up to when he had the win. Of course, he won, as I mentioned, as an amateur at Portrush. Would put me on him back at 2019. As I mentioned, I had a very good success with the Open back then for DFS perspective. But I think I'm going to go with Fitzpatrick. You can see the ownership's not too different. Of course, he had great form here at the Scottish Open. Kind of mixed results at the Open over time. From a modeling perspective, not super fantastic, but, let's go dive into a little more information. So he actually strikes best on Bermuda over his life. You can see the stroke gain is on the way up pretty steep. If we go look at the recent U.S. Open, of course, he ended up at Torrey with a 55th, but he did play Palmetto, had a 10th there, had a shot. The putter actually, did a lot there, but approach kind of threw him off a little bit. If we look at the Open history again, let's just check. Yeah, so out of the 5 times, best showing was a 20th, couple miscuts, and a couple 40ths. At the PGA 2015, he did not play. But at the recent at Kiowa, pretty good showing there, 23rd. Let's go look at the U.S. Open kind of history here and see what we got. Of course, this is recent at Torrey. But if we go look down 2019, this would be at Pebble Beach. If we look at 2018 at Shinnecock, he had a 12th. If we go look at 2015, he did not play at the Chambers Bay. 2017 at Erin Hills, he ended up at a 35th. So again, I'm liking some Fitzy Patrick. I will go there. And then Cam Smith. This is more of my own individual bias. So I'm going to just make that very clear. You're going to see, at least in Portrush at a T20, but there is no reason why. And you could make the same argument for Leishman. Both of them, Australian guys, grew up in a kind of a link style course. His game just, in my mind, should fit around the green recently. You can see has been a little bit of a struggle, but we all know what he can do with the putter. It's for me is more what's he going to do off the tee, and if Cam, can bring some lower 3-woods, hybrids, 3-iron, 4-iron, whatever it is, and keep himself in play, I think he could be very competitive here. If we go look at some further analysis, if you want to look, he does gain, of course, on bent grass. You can see here he does gain in very windy conditions. And if we go to some of the recent form, so we can look just right here at the PGA at Kiowa. He had a 59th, which I thought he would do better there. Of course, a good showing at the Masters, pretty good showing at the Players. Good showing at the WGC. This would have been at Concession. So that's, a little different than usual. Of course, played well at the Genesis, a tough course, which, of course, is Riviera. Let's go look. We already kind of talked about the Open history. We talked about the PGA, so I want to jump. Well, let's go look, see what he did at Whistling Straits. So Whistling Straits, he ended up with a 25th. So that's a good showing. Again, I think that's a pretty good comparable tournament and course. And then let's go look at his U.S. Open history. So he had a miscut at Torrey. Pebble Beach, he had a 72nd. He miscut 2008 at Shinnecock. And then 2015, though, at Chambers Bay, he had a 4th. He didn't play in 2017 at Erin Hills. So, again, this is, I'm being dead honest. This is a bias to my own opinion of how he plays. I like him here. I bet him outright. I'm not even sure. I think he could be 60. I know Leishman was 60 to 1. I'm going off the top of my head. I think Cameron Smith was 60 to 1. So I'll just let you know that I like that bet on both these guys. It's almost a coin toss. You could really look at these guys. Of course, they won the match play, the Zurich team play. So, yeah. Joaquin Niemann is probably more to me just, the putter and lack of experience. If the winds don't blow, he could be very, very alive. If it comes down to a scoring fest like an Erin Hills at the U.S. Open, yeah, definitely. And then I think what would that be? Royal Birkdale. I'm going to misplace, but when Stenson shot the 20 under. If it turns into something like that, Joaquin Neiman could be very live. You know, Jason Day, the only reason why I'm staying away from Jason Day is I'm just terrified of his back. The guy has had an amazing tournament history at the Open. If we actually went through all these courses I was just talking about and tournaments, he's going to be up there, either one of them or a very elite. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just letting you know from the comparable course side, everything from a modeling, you know, from the putter is kind of shown recent form. Projected, I think he's a good play. I can't pick him for me personally, just because I'm terrified of if it gets, you know, windy and cold and rainy in the back. I'm just letting you know he's probably not going to. He's going to be in some of my DFS lineups when I get in like the $10, but when I get the $100 entry, I'm probably going to stay away from Day. Sergio Garcia, you can also make a case for to play. You know, pretty good, solid history. Has been hitting, you know, fairways, ball striking. You know, it's showing here around the green, but I trust his around the green and get around the sand. But it's just the putter. Why I'm off him. You know, you see Sanjay Envy is playing. He could be live. I'm gonna skip through some of these guys kind of quickly. I'm betting Lee Westwood. I think he's 45 to 1. I could see where he could do well here, but from a DFS perspective, I'm out. You know, you can make a case for Phil Mickelson. Of course, Wolf with Drew. You know, from a DFS perspective, Daniel Berger could be someone, you know, for that price tag, a good value play. You're going to see projected ownerships there. My modeling says, but, you know, you can also see his history here. He's struggled a bit in link style. So I'm kind of passing over these guys. And we're going to scroll down. You know, Harris English, I've got a bet on, and actually was one of my picks, but I kind of ended up going to Brendan Grace. So we're all the way down here to 7,200 before I plug another guy. And again, Thomas Detry, I've got a bet on. I like him. Also from the odds perspective, you know, kind of a longer shot. But Brendan Grace, you know, he's shown that he can play in this. He's been, you know, popped up, of course, was doing well at Kiowa at the PGA for a bit there. Did well at the U.S. Open here. At Torrey, showed up at Memorial. You can see around the green, number one over the last 12 rounds. The guy has been doing well with the putter from 5 to 10. Okay, so we jump into Brandon Grace. You can see over the past, it has been the putter, but that's been kind of remedied. Over his last 10 rounds, he is gaining with the putter. Hence why he is starting to show up on some leaderboards. I already talked about his showing at the PGA at Kiowa at 38th. I don't remember now. I guess maybe he didn't play the Palmetto. No, I thought maybe he might have. Let's go look at his Open history. Best shown was a 6. And he had a 20th. So, you know, made the cut every time except for 2018. So a good, you know, I'd say that's a pretty strong Open history. Let's go look at the PGA. I want to look at the Whistling Straits. That would be 2015. He had a 3rd place finish at Whistling Straits. Let's go look now at the U.S. Open. Of course, the recent showing at Torrey had a 7th. And then we jump down. So he missed the cut 2019 at Pebble Beach. And then we go to 2018. This is at Shinnecock. He had a 25th. And then if we jump down to 2015 at Chambers Bay, he had a 4th place. And then at 2017, this will be at Erin Hills, he had a 50th. So everything there I kind of like. So that's the guy that I'm going with. I'm going to let you know. Of course, I got a bet on him. I've got quite a few bets out on these guys we're going to talk about. Matty Wallace, I like him. I think for like a top 10, I have a bet on him. Scrolling down, I'm not going to go through all these guys. The next guy I actually land on is Ryan Palmer. Now, this a couple things. He showed up, of course, at the Scottish Open. You can see when the guy's in 5 to 10 feet, he's elite. He's got a pretty solid tournament history at the Open. A lot of T30s. So for that price tag, I think from an ownership play, this is a little differentiation play for me. Of course, the Texas guy, I already know Ryan can handle himself in the wind. And then we go jump into some more information. Of course, you know, gains on Bermuda over his life. Ben has been, but I mentioned, Gains almost a stroke in the heavy winds. He missed a cut at Torrey Pines at the U.S. Open. Not a bad showing at Charles Schwab. Right? He had some really nice showings here early on. Had a good showing, in Texas. Kind of a lackluster at the Byron Nelson. But let's go look at some history. I don't think he played Palmetto. I think he already made his way over to Europe. We already looked. Well, let's go look at the Open again, just so you get a little more. Yeah. So a couple 30s. Miscut recently. Let's go look at the PGA. What I want to look at is 2015. He missed a cut at Whistling Straits. What about, let's go look at some U.S. Open stuff. So he's had some struggles at the U.S. Open. Actually is not going to show me anything that I really want to see, except Chambers Bay made the cut, and that was a league style in a 52nd. So there's some reasons why you might not want to play Ryan. I'm going to go with what I just seen recently at the Scottish. What I know he can do, he has had a pretty good showing here in the past, as I mentioned, at the Opens. And last but not least, I believe, let's see. So I want to make sure. Okay, so my last two guys I want to talk about is Richard Bland. Okay, so, Richard popped up on all of our radars here at the U.S. Open when he was leading after second round. The guy's an elite putter. He just hits fairways. He hits approaches. I showed you what he did at the Scottish and the Irish Open with good showings. And there's not a lot that, of course, I can show you with all the other tournaments. Except, like I said, you got recent form, and we know what he's done recently here in the majors that he's been in. That Open was, I believe, 2017, if I remember off the top of my head. He had a T22. The last guy I'm going to talk about is Lucas Herbert. Again, he's probably not going to be able to do a lot of the comparable courses on him, but also you saw won the Irish, had a good showing at the Scottish. He's been playing a little bit over here in the States. He's had good showings at the Travelers, Memorial. At Kiowa, he had a T71. Guy's been doing well with the putter. The driver is what's going to come down for him, but if he can find the fairway or maybe go down club down, he'll be well. All right, I think that's enough from the analysis side. Let's go jump back in and kind of wrap this thing up. Okay, so my top five, my Fab Five, we are going to go with, of course, Jon Rahm. Amazing form, just won the U.S. Open. Great league style player. I think everybody, to some degree, already knows that. You got Brooks Koepka, just elite at majors. The guy just turns a switch. Something happens. No way I cannot play him. You got Jordan Spieth, of course. Amazing records on link style courses. Creative, great short game. If he can get back to the putter, what we were seeing there earlier on when he won at Valero and all his good showings, could be very live to win here. Same with Louis. If he keeps putting the way he's been putting, he could definitely win this Open too. And Terrell Hatton is going to be, can you keep your head on straight and, of course, make the putts, but just an amazing link-style player. Then my next five was going to be Morikawa. Has really no history at the Open, so it's going to be a little new for him. But his game, it's going to come down again. Of course, I'm going to sound like a broken record, the putter, but I like his game for here. You got Fairway Jesus, a lot of experience. Of course, played on the European Tour. He's played a ton on the PGA, but also splits his time between the European. Good showing at the Scottish and Irish. I like to see that Fairway Jesus could come through and maybe, win a major here. Fitzpatrick, of course, everything is looking good. I have no issues with playing him. You got Cantlay, just solid all around. The putter's back. I'm excited about that. Scotty Scheffler, like Morikawa. Good. A lot of the reason why I'm playing him, not only is he a Texas style, but what his game does. I like that he came over here and played some link style, courses to get ready for this. And then my final, another Texas guy, Ryan Palmer. Good showing at the Scottish. Pretty good pedigree at the Open when he's played there. Cam Smith. Now, from a historical standpoint, nothing really says that you should play Cam Smith. But being an Australian guy, just like Leishman, everything in his game, I'm a Cam Smith fan. I'm going to play him, and I'm recommending him. That I think he could be kind of sneaky. Brandon Grace, good form in these kind of tournaments, of course. Also a European player. See no reason why he can't keep his good form running. And then, as I mentioned, Lucas Herbert, of course, won the Irish. Forgot off the top of my head, but had a top 10 or better at the Scottish. In real good form and been showing even good form at some of the tournaments he's been playing over in the PGA side. And then last but not least, Mr. Bland, man. You know, been showing up in the majors recently for us. Came on everybody's radar here. And last but not least, of course, has a really good showing at the Scottish and the Irish. So that's going to be my final pick. And then now to wrap it up, let's talk about my favorite bets. A couple of these I already touched upon. I like Ryan Palmer, 125 to 1. These are some of my long shots. I'm gonna let you know that right now. But hey, 125 to 1 to throw a few bucks on that. Ryan Palmer, experienced, been playing great, had a really nice showing at the Scottish. Why not? My next guy, a little off the base, but hey, Phil Mickelson won 200 to 1, won the PGA. Brendan Todd's game for me sets up for this course. All the guy does is hit fairways, and he's an amazing putter. The approach, you know, it's on and off, but he could be sneaky. I like putting a few dollars on that 200 to 1. The next, a top 10 finish. I actually got Richard Bland for a top 20 and a top 10 finish. He's 14 to 1 to finish top 10, and then I think he's 6.5, so pretty much split that in half to end up top 20. So I've got bets on both of those. And last but not least, even though I didn't pick Justin Thomas in my picks, I am going to play him when he's 20 to 1, better odds. That skill level also showed some life at the Scottish. If the putter's back, man, and it gets to a scoring fest, this guy could easily go out and win this, even though he's not had the best record at the Opens in past history. So I like JT to end up 20 to 1. Okay, with that said, that is going to wrap it. I will tomorrow be out with my Before the Lock show. That's everything from ownership projections. We're going to talk about weather, give you my top value plays, which is really more my top sleeper plays. The guys that are $7,000 and below, usually a 7,500 and below, but because we have soft pricing, I'm going to do 7,000 and below. And I also will announce the winners. I'm going to try to get that out a little earlier so I can get you guys the money ASAP. The 5 winners of the $100 Millie Maker. So again, as always, thank you for attending. And if you like what I'm doing, please click the like button. Share it with anybody else that you know plays DFS golf or might think this is interesting or like what I'm doing. Of course, subscribe. You still have this last chance. You can still get into the, I don't think I had it on there, but if you want to tell me who you think is going to win the Open, subscribe, tell me. It's still running. I'm going to go ahead and pull all that information tonight, announce the winners tomorrow, so you can still get in. And last but not least, if I can help you or have any questions or anything, hit me up on YouTube comments or follow me on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru. All right, guys, that was good, and I am super excited watching a ton of coverage. And anything I hear that I think you guys should know, I'll let you know. All right, talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.